last week was no proof, which can be a little intense if you're having to go through, you know, April through whatever, October, November of no proof forms. But I wanted to actually start out because I don't think we had really enough time for questions. And I just wanted to start out with, up to this point, I know a couple of people have emailed me about, oh, I have this or I have that. But does anybody have any questions up to this point about, like, the homework or the month-end closeout sign-in sheets? Or do you think it's, like, totally not productive? Or is it helping kind of audit prep? Like, do you know what you're looking for kind of thing? Or do you guys think it's a waste of time?
No, it's not a waste of time, Kasey. I want to clarify on the month-end closeout sheets because some of us are not clear what sheets they involve.
Okay.
We have the clerical closeout duty sheet and the 30-day pending sign off, voter registration, that kind of sheet. So which ones do we send to you?
I think I might have included a slide for today, but the only ones that you need to send to me are the 3-page, it's like the 3-page sign-in sheet that's landscape, where you're actually, like the first one that is just a bunch of rows of things broken out in daily, weekly, and that's just kind of give you basically like a summary of what it is you guys have to do or that you're responsible for on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. But then the ones that are, it's 3 sheets right now because I added no proof to the back, and they're landscape. It starts out with eligibility. I know the 3rd page is no proof. The 1st page starts out with ineligibility prep. The 2nd sheet doesn't have any boxes on it. It's just like 30-day pending, motor voter processing standards, and prenatal missed.
We have everything
Those are the ones that actually have the statements about, like, I am signing, you know, that I have checked this.
In the end of every month.
Okay.
Everything.
But I have a picture I can pull up here, and I'll show you that in a moment. But yeah, those are the only ones you're gonna send to me. Is the landscape one, the 3-page landscape one. And if you can send them to me in a scan would be good, just because I'm finding that I'm running out of room for paper in my one little cabinet that I have. And so I was gonna try to keep them just kind of like in a little electronic folder and see how that goes. If that works, then we'll do that. If it doesn't, then I'll tell you to send me paper. But right now I'm gonna try it out and see.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead. Today is really kind of more like a miscellaneous housekeeping. There's not a specific one topic thing like last time. Just a couple things that we just need to touch on, and we'll start running through those now. The objectives aren't in order. I ended up doing it in a little different order, but we'll go ahead and get that started. All right. It takes it a second, I think, to pull up. No? Does anybody see it yet? Because I don't see it on there. Hello? No.
We don't see it.
We don't see it, Kasey.
We're under the belief that Villarica's building is haunted. Not joking. So, yeah.
Everything.
It's always something. You know, you come into the building, the water's running. You know, things like that. Chairs are moved around. Yeah, it's great.
We're not lying.
No.
Is that true?
let me try to unplug and then plug back. Let me just start talking to you. So basically, we've already discussed like the first couple slides actually, but just about scanning your month-end sign-off sheets. And make sure, this is actually one thing I wanted to mention, is make sure, what are you doing? Make sure you're using the most recent one. The original one that I sent out only had the 2 pages because we hadn't covered no proof yet. And then on the day that we did no proof, I had added that 3rd page to include that as well. So just make sure you're using the most recent copy. If you haven't gotten it or you're not sure like where the email is or whatever, I'll just send it to you. You can just let me know. And then, you know, I'm not like, I get it that, you know, if you have a high Hispanic population, for example, like non-English speaking, obviously, like, you're going to have more no proofs than, like, Karen in Lamar, who has none. You know what I mean? Like, I get that. So if you need more time, I mean, yeah, there's, like, deadlines, but at the same time, every clinic situation is a little different. I mean, they can say that let's treat them all the same, but that's just not the truth. Anybody who works clinic knows that. So, you know, if you need more time because of, you know, your staffing issues that week or whatever the situation may be, that's okay. Just let me know. Because then I don't know if it's, I didn't get it because you didn't send it or vice versa. And Erica, do you still have Chris on?
No, but I can call him real quick.
Yeah, because it's not, I mean, I'm doing the exact same thing with the projection or presentation, and it's not working.
You have to turn it on there on the control.
Is it? I thought it was
Yeah,
already.
they face the computer.
Let's see.
Yep.
Is it pulling up?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll skip the mission today. And that was just objectives, which we'll just go through them as we do the topics. And then, is it little or can you see it big?
We can see it. You can keep going. Don't worry about
Okay.
it.
So that was the month-end procedures. This is what I was talking about. This is just like the list of closeout duties. So this sheet is just kind of to summarize for you guys. And then this is the sheets that I want, the 1, the 2, and the 3, that range from ineligibility to no proof. And then on that, I just wanted to mention about fixing errors. It's not just that you're going through and saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. If you find something that, like, on the list and, you know, something like, was the client termed an A, like for ineligibility, and you put no. Well, it's not just that you're writing no, it's that you're also going to go ahead and send that tag if you're able to, like if they haven't gone ahead and recertified again already as an eligible client. So, you know, depending on the situation, you may or may not be able to fix the thing that's wrong. And if you're not sure if it's fixable, you can just email me with like the patient number and the details. I can look at it. I can let you know if it is something fixable. You guys know I like to like tweak things sometimes. Or, you know, I'll say, well, you're not supposed to, but this is the way you can get around it. So, I mean, I can let you know so we can fix it as close to possible, if not altogether. Just a couple of examples, like with the no proof form. Like, if it says the income on the no proof form doesn't match the cert, and you ask me, well, how do I fix this? It's going to be dependent upon, was it when we were scanning proofs, or is it when we were copying proofs? Because if we were scanning proofs, I'm going to tell you to fix the income in WICs 1 through 4, send a UTAD, and error correct the cert form, because you're not going to be able to, I mean, you'd have to print out the no proof form, then you'd have to rescan it in. Now it doesn't have the right electronic date stamp, which causes more issues. So, like, if it's a copied proof, meaning from, like, April, May, June, July, some of you August, then I'd be like, oh, just fix it on the no proof form because that's the easiest to make it match what's already on the cert. So it just depends on what the situation is. And I would say, like, err on the side of caution. If you have any questions, you're not sure how to fix it or if it's fixable, just ask me, but you got to give me details, because you guys know I don't like to answer things blindly. I like to look at it, because sometimes I see other little things that we could tweak. And just one more example on that, before we go to the next thing, is like one of the questions in the no proof, it said, has a copy of the no proof form been imported? And I noticed that a lot of people were like, no. Well, I'm assuming no, because it was probably from before we were scanning, and I guess I just took it for granted. I didn't mention anything. So I'm assuming that you knew to go pull the chart and look for it in the chart. And that if you're truly answering no, it's because it wasn't like an import or in the chart. Because, we're covering stuff from April through September, but, we weren't scanning back in April, May, like I said, back then. So anything that would be an import now would be in the chart before. So that's interchangeable. So yes, it says, was it imported? But I didn't want it to make it confusing and be like, was it imported or was it in the chart? Because that's not what we're supposed to be doing currently. And then just to let you know, on your Training Tuesday homework, so far we should have completed audit prep for April through November on your 30 days, your VOC, your motor voters, your ineligibility, your no proofs. And then we've covered October through November for prenatal mislog and processing standards. I don't expect us to go back from April through September on prenatal or processing standards, because I don't think that they'll go back that far on those, because those books are so intense to audit. They're really a pain. And I don't think we should spend the time going back that far, because I really don't think that they'll look at it when they come. So we're just going to work on those two monthly going forward. So end of December, you'll just be looking at December and so forth. Okay, so this is my favorite, because I've been waiting a long time. Interview scripts. So we all know that it's a waste of paper, and that if I'm white today, I'm probably going to be white tomorrow, unless my mom tells me that my dad isn't who my dad is, and then I might have a change in race. But that's not the majority of people. So going forward, and you can start this today if you want to. I'm not putting a date. It's just effective immediately. You only have to use the interview script for the initial certification. So first time in your clinic or first time on WIC. And so you're not required to use the interview script anymore on halves, mids, research, not even on transfers. So basically, if you're doing an initial certification, use the interview script. If they're coming back for a half cert, recert, mid cert, A cert, don't worry about it. Just give them a questionnaire and a motor voter. And nobody sounds happy.
Yeah.
I guess I got overexcited. I don't know. You guys don't have any. I have been asking this every single time I have a state meeting. I ask them, well, what about the interview scripts? Oh, we have to ask USDA. Oh, we're waiting to hear from USDA. So I'm just happy. Okay, so this, you guys aren't going to be able to see that. Can you see that? Is that big enough? That voucher screen, can you see that?
No.
We have.
Does anybody not have your printout? Go ahead, Rebecca.
We have a question. On the interview scripts, I know you said just on the original certs, but if they're coming in as a transfer recert where we don't have to have, records and stuff, are we still going to go ahead and give it to them?
You can, yeah, I do, but you're not required to, is basically what they're saying.
Because then you'd have to ask them what it is.
Right. So, if you'd rather just give them the piece of paper and fill it out, that's fine. But they're not requiring you to, unless it's the initial cert.
So just
in my mind, I kind of felt like, well, if I make a chart, I'll give it to them. If I don't have to make a chart, then I don't have to give it to them. As a way to sort of differentiate, okay, if I have to make a physical chart, then I'll provide it. But all they're saying is that you only have to do it for the initial cert because you're allowed to ask them, has anything changed? Instead of asking them, what's your race?
Because I know, like, if you're doing, like, a true transfer pickup or, you know, mid-cert or half-cert, it's going to be on that certification paperwork in front of you. But when we're doing a transfer recert, we don't have to have anything. So to us, it's like a new person in the office. We're just using a WIC ID number.
Right. And I do actually, the call center actually, which this is why it's weird with the interview scripts anyway, because the call center, when they do like a mini register on somebody that they're trying to create a patient number on, they actually just ask it over the phone. So, I mean, it's okay to just ask them, but if you feel more comfortable using the paper, then that's fine.
Okay, but we just need it on certifications only then.
Right.
Okay.
The next thing is we've always, how am I going to make this bigger? I don't want to make it bigger. Let's see if we can make it, no. Okay, this is, about babies who are already over 6 months old at the time of their initial certification. So it's their first time on WIC, and for whatever reason, it's like the first time that they are coming to your clinic. I'm going to try to just show you a couple things. We might have to go back and forth, but let me give you the explanation first. So this is an infant that was born November of 2013, which means that they would have turned a year in November of this year. But they actually came, try to show you here. Can you see that? They did an initial certification. If you look in this area right here, the initial cert was in August of this year. So at that point, the baby was already like 8 months and something, almost basically 9 months old. So at the time of the initial cert, they were over 6 months old, basically. So what we used to do is say, well, it didn't matter. You still have to bring them in at the first year birthday to do a 1-year-old's recert. VMARS had changed like their edits and some other things so that everything is supposed to line up the way the procedure has, like the procedure hasn't changed on this. It's always been this way, but we as a district decided, no, we still make them come back in the month of their first birthday because it was causing issues with like food packages and TADs coming back. When critical errors we were doing critical errors, they would cause critical errors. And so we just always just said, come back at the first birthday. You actually don't have to do that anymore. You'll just truly follow what the next cert date is. And like for this child here, it goes 6 months out. So it doesn't make them good for a year, but it does make them good for 6 months. So instead of her coming in August for an initial cert and then November for a 1-year recert, she comes 6 months later, which is in February, and she'll do a recert then. I was trying to wait because I know some people have had them and I wanted to see if they cause any issues. So far, there have not been any issues. And so the food package rolls over like it's supposed to, and it hasn't been kicking out. So if you guys do have issues, you need to let me know so I can let the state know, who will let Covances know, who will let M&M know, and follow the trail that way to get it fixed. But as
Kasey,
far as I know right now, we're good on doing this.
Kasey,
so you'll just want to pay attention to your next cert date when you do have those infants that are already greater than 6 months old. And then, let's see. I think, does anybody have any questions about that so far?
Yes,
with
Kasey.
3 months baby.
Go ahead.
Kasey, I have a question. What if the infant was certified just a few days old on time for that first initial certification, and there was an oversight missing the mid-cert, rescheduling past the mid-cert till a couple of months before the child is a year old, and then that was overlooked. will this mess up our process for this infant, even though the child came on time? Would we be penalized for that, or we do need to look out for that first year research?
Well, that newborn is still they're gonna have to recertify when they turn a year, because you said that newborn was just like came in a couple days old, right?
Yes, on time.
So the research, the month that they turn 1 is still gonna drive their research appointment. And the fact that they like miss the mid-cert, you won't get actually dinged for that if they're able to look in the appointment screen and see, missed, rescheduled. There's not actually a place in the clerical part of the monitoring tool that said, did this person have a mid or a half? It literally just looks at break in service, initial contact date. Did they recertify in the month that they were supposed to, did they get vouchers, but they were supposed to recertify in that month, or, because you can't get vouchers if you're due to recert. So it looks at stuff like that on our part, but it won't ding you on the clerical side about missing the mid-cert. Now, the nutrition side is something else. Because, they have to have secondaries and things,
But we definitely have to do that 1 year, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
What happened with the 3 months? When the baby is researched in 3 months?
Paulita asked what happens if the baby is doing their initial cert and they're already 3 months old. Then the same rules apply. The traditional rules apply. They're gonna have a recert when they're 1, and they'll have a mid-cert when they're 6 months. The only time they won't have a mid, if they're late, is if they're already 5 months and a day, or already 6 months. If they're 5 or 6 months and they come in for the first time, they won't get a mid. They'll just do an initial certification and then a 1 year recert. Are we good so far?
Yes.
The next thing, I'm not going to go through this. I just wanted to, in case anybody didn't see the email, I did send an email out about ordering voter registration supplies. They've changed that website a lot, and I was like, well, where is it? And so I had to call the elections, the Secretary of State office, elections department, and he just walked me through it. So I thought this would be good to have on hand. So you have it in an email, and if not, you also have it this sheet, this one sheet is the instructions on how to do it. So this is if you need the envelopes or the applications, you can go ahead and order those.
I couldn't find the declaration forms on there.
It's supposed to, I'll double check it. It's supposed to be it's something if you need declaration forms, click here or something like that. I'll double check it.
Because I didn't see it on there. I looked and looked and looked and couldn't find it. But I found everything else because I've been ordering them.
Okay. If we have time at the end, I'll pull it up. If not, I'll do it when we finish, and I'll tell you where it is. Because I saw it, but I can't tell you exactly right now where. And then this is just an FYI. When we covered the thing about immunizations and the CPAs are going to start doing the immunizations, we discovered that on the transfer research tabs, it doesn't let the CPA choose it. When they click on it, it says not required or something, but it is required if it's a child. So Eric told me it was fixed, so I didn't bring it up last time. But then Paulita had one yesterday. So I was like, it's fixed or it's not fixed? So I sent him another example, and I haven't heard back from him yet. So if you do run into this, what will happen is the CPA won't tell you. You'll get a red light, and when you get the red light, you'll just have to manually go in the tab and then just fill in on these sections right here. So it's immunization status field 64 and 65, and you'll just have to manually put it in with the date, and then whatever code you decide to use. But he should be fixing it. So like I said, he thought it was fixed, but then we found another one. So, I mean, I'm sure he'll get that worked out quickly. So you may not even see it going forward. I know Henry had one. Paulita's had like 2. I haven't heard from anybody else, I don't think. But, you know, so it might not be happening that often. The next thing is just another FYI. We're just doing a lot of FYI today. Oh, get it? Breastfeeding, FYI? You get it?
Yeah.
Okay. With the breastfeeding dyad trends, the district self-review is now going to have a section on trend reports, like, you know, as a clinic met caseload for 97%. Julie is keeping track of those things. Like for Gwenna's side, they keep track of like obesity rates and first trimester enrollment, but she's just going to look at like clerk created errors versus CPA created errors, and then how many mismatched versus incomplete. I'm not a fan of this report just because I don't think it's really accurate. Like if, well, I mean it is, but it isn't. If you have twins, they haven't fixed where you can link both babies to her breastfeeding mom or their breastfeeding mom. So if you have breastfeeding twins, one twin is always going to fall on the report. And until the state fixes that, like, I just think that that's an accurate error when you know that there's issues with it, but yet you're still creating a report for it. And then also, if you have a baby who transfers out of your clinic, so they were breastfeeding in your clinic and you have them right, they transfer out of your clinic and they go to Clayton. When they go to Clayton, it's time for the mid-cert, and they decide, no, I'm not breastfeeding, I'm doing all formula. Well, they're not going to transfer the mom in because she's technically termed based on category, but she's still active in your clinic as a breastfeeder. That'll cause a mismatch. Well, that's not something the clerk did, and it's not something the CPA did. That's just like a glitch in the system, because you can't help if she transfers out of your system going in with a different feeding type. So I'm probably going to have to like sort of help her differentiate what truly is a clerk. Like a clerk error, for example, would be you put the wrong WIC ID when you did mom's cert. Like you put the wrong baby. Like you chose another child or a sibling or something. Or you put the WIC ID number in wrong. Or another clerk created error could be not sending those UTABs. So the CPA does a food package change and you don't send the UTAB. And then CPA created it's pretty simple, like they changed mom, but they didn't change baby, or vice versa. And I'm talking about feeding type. You know, if it doesn't matter if your mom is a sum and baby is getting full formula. Like if you change baby to full formula, mom has to be an F, not an S, even though they get the same food package. So like the actual feeding type that's in the top right-hand corner voucher, like it has to match. So exclusive to exclusive, fully to fully, some to some, mostly to mostly. Questions up until that point? All right, the next thing, I'm just noticing that some clinics have a lot of overrides, and it's not based on the biggest clinic. Like it's like some clinics that aren't that big on some months will actually have more overrides than even like Henry. So what I was noticing is I want to make sure that you guys realize on VMARS, most of the time, in the beginning it wasn't like this, but now most of the time, if you void an entire month, like you void all of the December vouchers and reprint on the new food package all of December, in most cases, it should not be asking you for an override on those, because when it spools, it recognizes that this entire month is voided. Now, if you void all of the month but one, then it's going to be like, oh, no, you need to override. So I want to make sure that when you know that you're voiding and you're going to void an entire month, go ahead and void those first, and then it should spool. And by the time you go to reprint December on the new food package, it shouldn't even ask for an override. So that should reduce some of the overrides. Now, and then, of course, you can't prevent it. Like, if you voided a partial month, like, you're going to have to override. Or if you had to do some prorating, so you've got, you know, December the 5th and then December the 17th in the same, print, because you had to prorate from like a 1E to a 3C. 17, 3C, yeah. Then it's going to make you override those. But at least some of you that have like pages and pages, it should reduce some of those. Because I actually have to like go through those and look at overissuance and underissuance, and I haven't been doing it, but I have to start doing it for this fiscal year, and it's a little tedious. And this is what I was talking about. So like down here, like November 27th, so that entire month is a void. So when I go to reprint November 27th, as long as I voided these first, by the time it spools, I shouldn't have to override when I reprint the C22. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, and it's not like there's something wrong if it does make you override, because it just depends on when it spools. But most of the time, by the time you do your voiding, and then you're thinking about it, and then you send your little TAD, you do whatever, most of the time it's picked it up, and then it won't ask for the override. On your VPOD list and receipts, I've just had a lot of questions lately, so I just thought it would be good to maybe add this in. But when you do your VPOD list and receipts at the end of the day, I mean, most of you know this, but just to cover it, obviously you're putting your receipts in order by the list, which means that if you print more receipts after you printed your list, you have to print a new list, because now those receipts aren't on the list. Now you've got receipts that don't match up to anything. So, sometimes it might be like almost 5 or maybe even 4:30 and you think you're done and somebody walks in, like you'll need to reprint that back page so you don't get dinged on it for an audit. And then also, you're not just putting them in order. You're checking them for IDs and signatures. And if the client comes in for an initial certification or a recertification, so basically any certification that requires that they present proof of ID, you don't put WC on the receipt. And the state will, like they have told us before, there's too many WCs. You couldn't possibly have done nothing but half certs and mid certs and pickups all day. You had to have had some recerts and some initial certs. And so they'll know. So I want to make sure, especially we have a lot of newbies, that you're not just putting WC on everything. Or if they don't have the card, obviously you have to put DL or whatever they bring. But it depends on what type of appointment they had that day. So if they had to provide proof of ID for that day, then that's the ID that you put on the receipt. If she brought a state ID, you put ST. If she brought a consulate ID, put your whatever you put. DL. So just make sure that you're not just putting WC on everything. And I'll be the first one to tell you, if you get to the end of the day and you're missing ID, I'm not going to tell you, go look that person up and see what they were here for. Go on WICs 1 through 4. I'm not. I'm going to say just put WC. But I'm saying as you go, like client per client, you should be looking to see what they're there for. And you can tell easily. Like if you're printing vouchers, you know that they had to provide proof because you have to put in the pickup code. You have to tab through the STAD or the CTAD, so you know if it was a proof certification or not.
And the HAPSERS and the MINSERS, remember before we are requested immunization record, and the receipt you have to put now WC? Because before you put I am.
Well, no, because the immunization would have been for the child.
Yes.
But you only write, the ID that you write on the receipt is only for like the applicant, the person applying for WIC. Mm-hmm. Not the ID of the child who came in, but the person who is actually applying for the services. And then it's okay to sign someone's list. Like sometimes you have like your manager comes in just for a second, she prints, maybe a couple of people, and then she dips. I know it's happened to me where, I leave and like I've got vouchers. So, I mean, if it's, I'm not saying go through and do 10 sheets of somebody's vouchers, because I wouldn't do it for somebody if they had 10 sheets of vouchers. But I mean, if they just have like a half sheet or something, it's okay as long as everything's there. Because you're just verifying that everything is correct. Like not missing anything, missing IDs and stuff like that. You're not signing that you actually printed those vouchers, because the person who printed them, their initials will be on the receipt. Now, if you don't feel comfortable signing, or you're like, well, she never remembers to sign her stuff, and I'm just going to keep leaving posties on it, I mean, that's fine too. I just wanted everybody to know that you're not signing because you actually did those, but of course, you know, you don't want to be accountable for somebody else's work. So if they're missing a bunch of receipts, they don't have IDs on anything, they're missing all their signatures, then I wouldn't do it. I would just leave it for them. And just remember, missing signatures, you need a fail to sign, and missing receipts require a mock receipt. I tried to include a piece of blank VPOD paper, but every time I tried to scan it, it kept putting the watermark on it. So I just did this instead. There's just 8 areas to the mock receipt. Some of you get real creative and start adding a whole bunch of extra stuff, but then you leave off the stuff that's required. So just want to make sure when you do a mock receipt, there's just 8 fields that you're required for. WIC ID, name, clinic date initials, an ID. Usually you don't have a signature on a mock, so you put failed to sign, and then you list the voucher numbers. Don't list the food package and the date they were printed, all that other stuff. Just list the voucher numbers. If you're doing anything other than this, you're either doing too much or not enough. And I'll tell you, I mean, the only reason I know most of you are like, why are we going over this? This is simple. Because every single time I go into a clinic, it's issues with VPOD receipts, which to me is like the easiest thing that we're responsible for. So,
Kasey?
Yep,
we have a question regarding if the computer says it printed and it didn't print, do we need to make a mock receipt?
Yes. Because if it's on your, well, I hope if you're talking about that one issue that happened when the system goes down, it depends on the scenario. So there have been some glitches with VMARs where, like, if it's on your list and the vouchers didn't print, then yes, you have to have a mock. But there have been situations where actually vouchers print that aren't on the list, and then I have to have M&M manually enter them into the voucher screen and into the printed voucher file so that they'll print on the list. And whenever we went down a couple last week, I know it happened in Fayette and Coweta, so that was like a different situation because you guys actually like had voucher receipts that didn't print on the list, but that's different than like they're on your list, they're considered being printed, and they just didn't come out because there was an issue like with the printer or the connection. So then yes, like you would have to make a mock.
But in that case, we write computer error, right?
No, you write fail to sign.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kasey.
Don't do the like unless you're talking like, you know, sometimes like the vouchers print but then the receipt doesn't print out. If you've got issues where sometimes like the ink gets all smudgy and so the ink doesn't set and so you can't issue them because the ink is almost like powdered up. So it's like they did print but they're not good enough to give because maybe it started to jam or something. Then, you know, you can do a fail to sign, but if you are voiding them, you don't have to put a fail to sign anyway because you can just stamp them void. Like as long as they're all, like all the vouchers on the receipt are, or all the vouchers that printed are voided. Did that make any sense? Like sometimes the vouchers print out, but the receipt doesn't, and you might be able to issue some of the vouchers, but not others. You basically just want to make sure that if the vouchers are on your list and you don't have a receipt, you need to make one. Let's see. There's basically kind of 2 scenarios with the mocks. You either use a blank sheet of VPOD paper, or you can use the VPOD paper that says void, but you can only use the scrap that has void already on it if all of those vouchers that you list on there are voided vouchers. If any of the vouchers that you list are issued, you can't use the void paper. You have to use a blank piece of paper, a VPOD paper. And then if the entire mock receipt is a void, like every single voucher is a void, you aren't required to have signatures or IDs. Like if you void that entire receipt, you can just stamp it with void and that's it. Does anyone have questions up to that point?
Kasey,
Yep.
just a reminder, if a
Sure.
proxy, just a reminder, if a proxy comes in, we have to have their ID along with WC because I'll need the folder on the receipt.
Yeah, the proxy is supposed to present ID as well as the WIC card. So some of you will write down like DL/WC, and that's fine. I will tell you that the state isn't going to go as far as like looking at each specific receipt and pulling it up and seeing like who the proxy was and is that the name of the signature. The only time it would come up is like if a mom said, nobody's supposed to get my vouchers, and you did issue vouchers, and then we have to pull the receipt and look and see who signed and is that person listed. So if you're not putting like DL/WC, it's not wrong. Like you won't get in trouble for not putting both for the proxy. But it is a good idea to show that, like, yes, I got DL from them and they had the WIC folder in case anything comes back on us where our mom says she didn't get her vouchers and we weren't supposed to issue them.
It's not supposed to the proxy be on the system and sign on the card?
Yeah. Paulita said, basically don't forget, like, they also have to have their name in the system. So, ID, WIC folder, and their name in the system. And then the last thing, just because like the new audits have started and I really don't want anybody to get a corrective action when I come around on something like dual participation file. So, I just want to make sure, for federal fiscal 14 so far, you should have a district report and it's only dated for October of 2013 through March of 2014 because that's as far as the state has gotten. That's what our current one is. If they go ahead and they update me with like April, May, June, July, August, they'll probably send like a whole bunch all at once. I'll update the district report. I'll send that out. And I always, when I send it, I say, replace the one dated October through March with this one. Because your end of the fiscal year should always be through September. And even though the federal fiscal 14 the year is done, the state hasn't been sending dual participation lists. So I don't know if that's good because it means that they haven't had that many or if it just means they're behind. I'm not sure. And then you also have to have the state report. So right now for fiscal 14, all you should have is October 2013, November, December, January of 14. They actually didn't do one for March, and that's unusual. They'll usually send one that just says like nothing on it, but they didn't. And then March. So if you're missing February, that's okay. But if you're missing any of the others, I'll need to get them to you. And I already know about yours. We'll look at that in a minute. Okay. And then for fiscal 13, it would be a district report dated October 2012 through September of 2013. That's the only district report you should have filed. So if you had one that was like October through some other month, you would get rid of that, shred it, because it would have been replaced with the final, which is through September. So you shouldn't have multiple district reports with different date ranges within the same fiscal year. And then state reports every month from October 2012 through 2013. You're not required to have reports really from like 12 and 11 and 10 because they won't look at them. We have to file them at district, and that's sufficient for the retention schedule, like the 5 years. So that's okay. I mean, if you have them, it's all right. You're just not required because they're not gonna look at them that far back, and neither will I. Susan wanted me to mention that on the surveys, it doesn't tell you like who did a survey and who didn't do a survey, but it does tell you how many people. So like the first one, I think we had like 14. The second one, we had 20 people participate. And then last The last one that we just did, only 15 people. Her words were, let them know that that is unacceptable. So I'm passing on that message. She wants more participation in the surveys. There's been some good feedback. Like, I know you guys want a training Tuesday on transfers, but I'm waiting for VMAR's, like, a VMAR's committee meeting to make sure that the other kinks with the out-of-state transfers is fixed before I send information out. So you'll get a web link after today's meeting for your Survey Monkey, and if you can, there's only, I think, like 12 questions or something, 11 or 12 questions. If you don't want to put comments, that's fine. Otherwise, you can just click your response, and don't be mean, but be honest. And 'tis the season. And then don't forget your sign-in sheets. And I think that's it. Our next meeting, because Gwen is going to do one on NICU babies next week. And then we'll follow up talking about those breastfeeding NICU babies the week after. So that's what the next training Tuesday will be after she does her thing with the CPAs. And then we'll go from there. And I probably won't have any homework. If you want to self-assign homework, it would be to do those dual participations, make sure you're not missing anything. And I mean, I guess if you want me to send out a little check-off thing, I can. Or if you're just missing anything, just let me know. So if you just want to self-assign homework, I would just make sure your dual participation file is in order before we come around and do rounds with the audits. Other than that, I will see you guys later, as if anybody has any questions. No? We got time? No? All right, I'm going to sign off then.
It's 9.
Almost, right?
It's 9. 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes. All right. Thanks, Kasey.